Good evening, my friends. I am going to talk tonight about what hope is in a practical way. This was requested by a client of mine and a dear friend, and I think it's a good topic because I think hope, at least I know for myself, and I think it's kind of like mathematics was for a lot of people, where you go through the motions, or you like know what it is, but it doesn't really make sense on a practical level. And I think I've heard a lot about hope my whole life, but I didn't really understand what it was until my recovery. And my first practical definition, this is very much, I am not a theologian, I am not a philosopher, this is just practical. What does hope look like when you're actually working on living it out? And the first thing that comes to the most basic level is believing in good things. That is the essence of what hope is believing in good things. And then the next step is knowing and believing that you can choose good things, that you can tap into that, you can choose it for yourself. And part of it is believing that those good things are for you. They're not just good things floating around, they're good things for you. But the most foundational thing is just believing in good things. And that's it. That is hope. And what it is it's like we draw upon this I've heard it said that hope is, hope springs eternal. And it's true. We're just drawing upon that, really pulling it into ourselves and into our lives by choosing it. And one of the things I was talking about with my client when we brought this up was that hope is a very present moment thing. It's not a future oriented thing when in practice. It's future oriented in that by choosing goodness in the present moment, we're planting those seeds for the future so that we do have a future full of good things. Because a lot of times, as I think it's a very instinctual thing, another thing that hope is like, in my opinion, is it's like sunlight. And we need to reach for it most during dark times when we're struggling. That's when we need hope the most. And it's only future oriented in that we call upon this belief in good things and in striving to bring positivity and realness, the reality of goodness to our minds and hearts and bodies when we need it most, which is when there's so little of it around us, so little of it surrounding us. When all seems dark, that's when we reach for hope. We need to remember that sunlight exists even in Alaska when the sun doesn't rise in the winter, in places like that. It's still there, it's still real, and we call upon that. And another quote that really captures the heart of hope for me is one by Albert Camus, and it said, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me lay an eternal summer." And I was like, yeah, I can see that. Um, for me, I think probably the most poignant example of hope in my life was after I had my re-injury, and I mean, um, I was within essentially a mental illness. I mean, by pretty much any standards, I had a clinical mental illness at that point. It really was just limbic system impairment, and I knew that. But it was so interesting because how I got out of it, because what it's like you're inside a prison in your own mind. You can't get out. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how to fix it, and you can't ask anyone for help because no one else also knows what's going on or how to help you. You have to figure out how to get out of it yourself. And for me, the only way that I was able to do that was saying, I know that what I did worked. Like what I did for that first 4 months of my recovery, I sought goodness, I sought beauty, I sought truth. I stayed in the present moment. I let go of thinking. I let go of fear. I just allowed goodness in, and I pursued it in every single moment. And so I was like, it worked. It's going to work again. This works. I know it does. And it was that conviction, that belief that that goodness was still available to me, that kept me hunting it in every moment, even when my brain chemistry wouldn't support it. But I would get these little glimmers, for a few seconds here or there, of the little dust in the sunlight. Just these moments, like looking at the clouds and be able to feel the joy of it for a few seconds. Those are the parts I remember of that time. And it was in between was just this it was just horribly violent war to get back to that place. Um, Strive to achieve it. But I was right. And part of it was that my faith, because no one around me believed in me. There were my husband. There was no one in my life who believed in me that I was going to succeed. Everyone around me either just ignored me or didn't believe that I could succeed. So even though I was struggling to do that, I knew it inside of me that I would be able to do this. It just took several years instead of several months to get back to that place. But ultimately, it's something we draw upon in the present moment. We pull it down and call it into ourselves. We plant that goodness, that belief in what is good here and now, right here and now for me. That to me was the most one of the most radical things, because in my upbringing, hope was about hoping for eternal life, which in my upbringing, in my mind, the way it was communicated to me, I saw that as like after death, right? Like hope in heaven is this far off thing, but for now you're just stuck suffering. It was just part of how I ended up with LSI, because that's a terrible thing to believe. And so it changed to me saying, no, I believe that I'm worthy of that those good things I believe in are for me here and now to experience in my body, in my life, in my relationships, in every aspect of my existence here on earth now. I don't need to wait. And so drawing upon that good experience and putting our faith in it, putting our belief in it, allowing ourselves to bask in it, allows that to come to fruition in our life over time. The more we believe in that, and as in neurological terms, what we focus on, the more you focus on something, the bigger it grows. You're planting neuronal pathways, you're increasing the amount of receptors you have in your brain for positive neurochemistry every time you choose to believe in good things. Obviously, this implies that we let go of control over what good things. That's huge, pardon me, and very important part of this process of hope is saying, I really just want what is good, and I don't care what kind of good. I'm not attached to the details of my good. I just want what is good. I want to experience peace. I want to experience joy, and I'm not attached to the out of how I get there. The how, the what, the when, the where, the who is it with, all of that. We let go of that and just say, I expect good things. And on a more kind of spiritual or religious note, if you want to call it that, believing that God wants good things for me. When the way that I experience hope is, it's kind of like this siren call of God, like calling to us. I almost imagine it's like that moment when you're a little kid lost in a crowd and all of a sudden you hear your parent yelling to you. It's like that. It's like this constant calling reminding us that we're not lost permanently. It's not over. All is not lost. Mommy's still there. Daddy's still there. Like, God is still calling us home. And then we have, of course, life, the way life works, we're interspersed with times where we experience that. And sometimes it's a very long stretch that we don't. And that's when it takes the most insane courage to have hope, because I've realized that the most courageous thing in this world that we can do is believe in what is good. There is no greater act of courage than believing in what is good. But yeah, that's the essence of it. It's just striving. And ultimately, though, instead of us, just naturally hearing like you would if you were actually a child in a crowd and you hear your mother or father calling you and you thought you were lost, sometimes that call is always there, because God's love is unconditional and constant. Goodness itself is a reality that does not ever move. It's unmovable. It's unchangeable. And hope is saying, I have the choice to open my ears to hear that here and now. That's what hope is. And that's why hope is a very present moment thing. It's something we can choose, because it's saying, I have that choice. I can have that now. And that in that moment we begin to feel hope for ourselves and for our lives, that good things can happen, because we're standing within it in that moment. So that's my very short blurb on what hope looks like, practically speaking. And I hope that that's helpful. Different version of hope. Anyways, we're not going to get into semantics. My apologies for being a dork. Also not. I love being a dork. I hope you love being a dork, because I'm sure you want to. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing, is why there's always reason for hope, is because good things don't, like, it's like that moment at the end of, the very end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, when they're all, like, Samwise and Frodo are on the side of Mount Mordor, and Sam's like, can you remember the taste of strawberries? And Frodo had lost that. He had lost his touch with what was good. And, like, Sam was his hope at that point. But that was that like, Sam shows such hope in that moment. It's that knowing, like, those good things exist. That's why we're going through this. It's worth it. And part of that is understanding we have to get to where we have to move ourselves to where those good things exist. And that's a very mysterious process and unique to each of us. But, yeah, it's practice. It's a practice, and it's a reality that you can live within all the time. So I invite you to open your ears. Have a lovely evening. From my living room to yours.